So at the center of many of the 49ers' problems this season as they struggle along through this post-Super Bowl campaign is quite literally the center position. Jake Brendel is the 49ers starter there, going on his third year. And I think he is playing the worst football of his career. I'm going to bust open a quick clip here. This is Jake Brendel failing on a reach block, trying to get Quay Walker, the linebacker, number 7, and he whiffs on him, and that means that Christian McCaffrey was unable to pick up any yardage. Only 31 rushing yards for Christian McCaffrey. I want to pause this. Look at number 7 on Green Bay. That's Quay Walker. He's going to sprint and try to make this stop on Christian McCaffrey, and he's going to be successful in disrupting the play because it's going to be the center, Jake Brendel's job to snap the ball and get to the second level. It's called the reach block. It's a difficult block. It takes burst and athleticism about 4 or 5 yards up the field. Pause it again. Brendel about a step too slow. Can't quite get to Quay Walker. And because of that, I pause it again. Look, if Brendel had executed that block, instead we see the back of his jersey. But if he had executed that block and if Quay Walker had been neutralized, Christian McCaffrey could cut back. I'm sure he'd beat Keyshawn Nixon, Deommodore Lenoir's former high school teammate, number 25. I'm sure that we'd still see Christian McCaffrey running right now. Instead, the block failed, and so did the run. I am not the guy, and I have a lot more clips to show you. I am not the type that is going to cherry pick bad plays and only show those without any context. So that's why we look at some of the data from somebody like PFF. They're going to be looking at every single play, and they're going to be grading on a play-by-play basis. And I know this also is not a complete story all of the time because PFF may not know exactly what the 49ers and Kyle Shanahan are asking for on specific plays, but it does tell you an overarching picture, and it actually goes nearest year to furthest year. So 2022 is at the bottom. These are pass blocking grades, run blocking grades, and overall offensive grades. Jake Brendel, when he first started, when he replaced the retired Alex Mack in 2022, was one of the best pass blocking centers in football. At a nice green grade here, 71.8. And according to PFF, the run blocking actually got better since 2022, but it's regressed a bit this year. The pass protection has really slid this season from Jake Brendel, even though I think it's gotten better from some of the 49ers' other offensive linemen. But when I show a play to you like the one that I just did, trust me when I say that there were several examples of it in this game against the Green Bay Packers where the 49ers could not run the ball. It's been 2 straight weeks of tough times running for the 49ers. And it wasn't just Jake Brendel. Aaron Banks had some trouble run blocking in the game against Green Bay as well. I know Dominic Pooney had some penalties. Outside of Jalen Moore, who filled in for Trent Williams at left tackle, it was tough sledding for the 49ers as a whole in this game. But center is so uniquely important, and it's something that I've covered a lot over the years. And I think it's time to go into the importance of this position to explain why the 49ers are struggling in large part because of struggles at this specific spot. The 49ers spent a lot of money to sign Weston Richburg, who was a great player for them, but unfortunately suffered what turned out to be a career-ending injury in week 14 of the 2019 season. Read what Kyle Shanahan had to say about the center position after he signed Weston Richburg in 2018. And he's talking about Alex Mack, who he had in Atlanta and Cleveland before, and then he signed to the 49ers in 2021. Mack is Jake Brendel's predecessor. This is a position where the 49ers, prior to Jake Brendel, had always invested big resources between Weston Richburg and Alex Mack. Shanahan said, when you have a center at the level of what you're talking about with Alex Mack or with Weston Richburg, it changes a lot of things that people don't totally realize. Sometimes you have to get in certain personnel groupings to help someone have an angle to Mike linebacker so you can help your center out with the guard. Sometimes you have to go into one back. Now will linebacker is going to walk outside the box and the angles aren't as good. But if you got a center who can reach someone on his own and doesn't need the help, it allows you to do a bunch of different stuff. It really helps the versatility in everything you can do, not just at center, but what your guards and tackles can do on the other positions. It really helps solidify the whole O-line. I feel that center is usually where it starts. There's a lot of good players, but when you have a difference maker at that position at center, it's been a lot easier to run an offense. That's Kyle Shanahan in 2018 saying straight up, having a difference maker at center is huge. Trent Williams went a step further in 2021. This is also from one of my old articles. Look at what Trent Williams said. Every time Kyle has been successful, his center has been the driving force behind that. The center is the brain trust of our offense and our offensive line. To get a guy that's an all-pro and a pro bowler that's literally played the position to the highest level you can play it for as long as he's been in the NFL, you really can't ask for anything better than that. That is Trent Williams talking about the 49ers signing Alex Mack in 2021. So this is a zoom-out situation. The Shanahan 49ers and Shanahan offenses in general, this goes back to Cleveland in 2014, have relied on top-level center play. In 2014, Shanahan had Alex Mack on the Browns. In 2015, Shanahan went to the Falcons. The offense, it was okay, but I would say it was more of a middling offense. Didn't have Alex Mack. But in 2016, Shanahan convinced the Falcons to sign Alex Mack, so he reunited with his all-pro center. That was a record-breaking Atlanta offense in 2016. Then, when Shanahan took over for the 49ers in 2017, one of his big free agent signings early in this tenure in the 2018 season was Weston Richburg. We got some of those quotes right after the 49ers signed Weston Richburg. So really solid signing for the 49ers. He was a perfect fit in their system. Former track star in high school, and because of that, he had the athleticism to execute on some of those reach blocks. Why don't we show this again? A reach block is one where you've got to explode out of your stance after snapping the ball, and you've got to get to the second level. You got to beat 7 to the second level, and Jake Brendel didn't do that on this particular play. So Richburg was really good at that. Alex Mack was really good at that, and it was so important for the 49ers to have a center that could do that because he was asked such a difficult task, but that's what opened up so much of the offense. And that's why you get quotes like the ones that I just gave you from Shanahan and from Trent Williams. Centers also are the key to pass protection in this offense because of how communication responsibilities and how play blocking call responsibilities are communicated. And this is not just the Shanahan thing. Now we can go back even further into 49ers history. We can go back to Steve Young. In 1994, the 49ers badly needed a center. Because Guy McIntyre left in free agency to the Packers, Jesse Sapolo, who'd been their center, needed to move to guard. They just needed more athleticism at guard. So what the 49ers did to get over the hump to win their most recent Super Bowl 30 years ago, they signed a center named Bart Oates, who'd been with the New York Giants, but was Steve Young's college teammate back at BYU. Bart Oates joined the 49ers and helped get them over the hump in that 1994 season when they beat the Cowboys and won that most recent Super Bowl. So Steve Young, I talked with Steve Young about it a long time ago, 2020 run, right before the 49ers traded up to draft Trey Lance. And this was really the focus. The 49ers were coming off the 2020 season when they really struggled at center because Richburg didn't play. He'd been hurt that year. A lot of people are comparing 2024 now to 2020. But here's what Steve Young told me about the center position and protections coming from that center position. In the end, the center, no matter how you want to think about protection, it doesn't matter. You can come up with 6,000 different ways to protect, but you have to split it into sides. And the center has to figure out which way to go. He's the one that needs to be the fulcrum of it. A center that really understands protection, who really understands how the quarterback thinks, they really do need to work in tandem. The less the quarterback needs to worry about the protection, the better he can play. So this is a quick dip into what people were trying to complain about a month ago. Brock Purdy needs to handle all the protections on his own. Why is the center handling these things? This all needs to be with the quarterback. Kyle Shanahan's not running things right. Well, let's take Steve Young's word for it. He was with a terrible franchise in Tampa Bay, and he said this about them versus how the 49ers ran things back when they last won a Super Bowl. The idea that I had to worry about protection when I went to Tampa Bay and how they did it was just, you look at it, and it was criminal. It was criminal, Steve Young said. It was stupid. And the greatest systems are where the center really takes protection on, and the quarterback has a sense of it, but the center handles it. All right, all this information, 49ers history, importance of the center position, being athletic. Those are the Bob McKittrick lines. He would like the smaller, nimbler offensive linemen so they could block in the schemes where you would reach block and you would take on guys on the second level. That's carried over to Shanahan's system. That's carried over to today. But also the history of the center position has evolved the center, taking on the protections, taking something off the quarterback's plate. The overarching lesson from everything that I just shared with you is that center is extremely, extremely important, and the 49ers aren't getting good enough play from center. I showed you a run blocking clip from Jake Brendel. Here's a pass blocking play where Jarran Reed just destroys him. It's better from this angle. Jarran Reed knocks Jake Brendel over, and Brock Purdy has to go to the check down. We can rewind here. I'm going to pause this. Right here, Brendel has Jarran Reed engaged, and Brock Purdy thinks that he's going to be able to go through his progressions, maybe find somebody open. But about a split second later, Jarran Reed tosses Brendel aside, and Purdy's just going to have to go to his quick outlet, Christian McCaffrey. Deebo Samuel's not even coming out of his break at this point yet. So another example of the center position breaking down for the 49ers this year. Here's a Christian McCaffrey run. I'm going to, again, pause this at different moments so you can watch Jake Brendel. Out-muscled. 93, big defensive tackle. Slayton for Green Bay. Pushes Jake Brendel back into Christian McCaffrey. Look where Brendel is right now. I stopped the tape, and McCaffrey doesn't have any room to run because his center is getting backed into the running lane. It's not Christian McCaffrey's fault that he has to redirect in that situation. This is a clip going in the other direction. This was the second play of the game, or the third play of the game, the first third down of the game. This was the Packers bringing a zone blitz. So what happens with a zone blitz is that they're going to bring the linebacker, Quay Walker, number 7, as one of the 4 rushers, and they're going to drop 55, who's the defensive end on the right side. They're going to drop him back into zone coverage. So this is inherently going to be a confusing play to pick up, but it's very important for the center to be able to identify the pressure. And it's important for the center, especially a center who has athleticism like Jake Brendel. He has to be able to slow down a blitzing linebacker who's coming at high speed. This is not a muscle play. This is more of a quickness play and pass protection. Here comes Quay Walker. Brendel might have seen him a split second too late. Maybe the recognition wasn't great, but he's given this shove when Quay Walker is already parallel with him, and Quay Walker is going to be able to disrupt this play. Now, Brock Purdy probably does much better than Brandon Allen here, better pocket presence for Purdy, but that's what makes Purdy so valuable for the 49ers. So anyway, that's just a few plays, and I go back to this just so to make sure that we're emphasizing not cherry-picking plays. I wanted to show you some bad plays where the 49ers had struggles with Jake Brendel, and the pass protection this season has indeed been the worst of Jake Brendel's career. When they first promoted him to the starting center in 2022, Brendel was really good. He was top 7, top 8 in pass blocking efficiency that first season, but he hadn't been there over the next 2. And I do think that some of the run blocking clips across the whole line that we saw from the 49ers this past game were alarming. I do have to mention that Jake Brendel was on the sideline for much of the offseason program and for scheduled days during training camp with knee tendonitis. So it is fair to wonder, is he 100%? Is the knee the reason that the play has regressed? It obviously has when we look at this tape for the 49ers. And it is fair to wonder if the 49ers were really hoping that John Feliciano would take over the center position at some point this season. Feliciano had started a season for the New York Giants there. But his knee, he had knee surgery of his own right here this late in the offseason, right toward the end of training camp. And his knee didn't recover or respond the way that the 49ers wanted it to. His practice window had been open over the past 3 weeks, but they never activated him. And that opportunity has now expired. So Feliciano, who helped the 49ers fill the weak spot of their offensive line last season, that was Spencer Burford at the right guard position. He took over as starter for Burford at about this time of the year. He's not going to be doing the same at center. The other 49ers potential options are somebody like Nick Zakelj or Ben Bartch. But it's important to say that when we go back to the quote here from Trent Williams, I thought this was the strongest one. He said, every time Kyle's been successful, his center has been the driving force behind that. Well, the 49ers have been successful with Brendel in there. I think that the play from Brendel was definitely good enough in 2022, and obviously was good enough in 2023. He wasn't the reason they lost the Super Bowl. The play has been good enough from Jake Brendel to get the 49ers to where they want to be, but it hasn't been good enough this year. So there's been a definite regression on that front this year, and how the 49ers proceed given the history at this position for San Francisco. I mean, it's important to the 49ers system, not just this year, but it's been important in the past. How they proceed beyond this season is going to be fascinating. I do not think that they're going to turn the page, barring an injury, to somebody like Nick Zakelj or Ben Bartch this season. It would take a real injury that impedes Jake Brendel for the 49ers to do that. So that's my TED Talk on the center position. I really wanted to make sure that you guys had the full context of why this is so important. Shanahan has never invested big money into the guard position. Shanahan has invested big money into tackle, obviously with Trent Williams, a first-round pick into Mike McGlinchey at right tackle, and he's also invested in center with Weston Richburg and Alex Mack. But the guard position is where the 49ers have gone to the bargain bin. The first time that they went a little bit cheaper at center, ever since they got good, obviously, in 2019, was Jake Brendel. When Alex Mack retired after 2021, they decided to promote Brendel in-house. Then they gave Jake Brendel an extension, and I think he still played fine after the extension. It's been this knee tendonitis, and which has coincided with the dip in play from Jake Brendel, which I really wonder about. And I do think that John Feliciano was part of the 49ers plans to make sure that they solidified this part of the line in case that the play did regress to this point, given the importance of the center position. But that was a blow for the 49ers when John Feliciano was not able to get his knee into position to be activated from injured reserve. So there's so much talk about the 49ers issues, and everybody wants to say, well, is Brock Purdy doing this wrong? What might Kyle Shanahan be doing? And I love to talk about the fact that Kyle Shanahan isn't pitching with his fastball this year. But I think you could root it back to some of the issues that the 49ers are seeing blocking-wise up front. Because if the center is not consistently delivering some of these reach blocks, if the center is getting blasted back in the running lanes, if left guard like Aaron Banks is struggling, or even Dominic Pooney, if he has some of these procedure penalties that the 49ers had in the game against the Packers, it's going to be a lot harder for Kyle Shanahan to call the right plays. There's a reason why Trent Williams said this. I'm going to keep on bringing this back. Every time Kyle has been successful, his center has been the driving force behind that. The center is the brain trust of the offense. So if Kyle is not as successful this year, if he doesn't seem to have the fastball, well, maybe that's because he's not working with his best stuff. And I think that the regression at the middle of the offensive line would definitely indicate as such. Now, there are other things that are afflicting the 49ers this year, but I'm a big believer that interconnectivity is often the story, almost always the story in the sport of football. But take a look at this. SF Data 49ers does such a good job. Well, this is a separation chart. And to me, I've been talking a lot about this, but we didn't have it in graph form until now, until SF Data Niners did such a good job of this. But I know I'm changing gears here, but I'm going to tie it back into the offensive line center issue in a little bit. This is an XY chart. Average cushion that defenses give receivers is on the x-axis. Average separation of wide receivers is on the y-axis. So, the cushion, whatever, that's stylistic. That's what the defense is going to do. You can't really control that. But separation, you should be able to control, at least with the quality of players you have trying to beat man coverage, or maybe I should say, or with the play calling. You want to scheme guys open. You want to scheme separation into a play. Well, teams are deciding to press cover the 49ers. They're not giving them a lot of cushion. As you can see, the average cushion is very small. And teams also are seeing the 49ers not separate. And we're going to talk about potential reasons why. But San Francisco is in the very bottom left here. They're averaging some of the worst separation in the entire NFL. And I've talked about this a lot. This now includes both catch or incompletion. It's not just at the time of catch, but it is the separation number for receivers who are intended on any given play. Last year, the 49ers were in a better spot. I think that everyone will agree that this was a healthier 49ers offense in 2023. And that healthier 49ers offense, I'm going to drop in the graph right now, looked like this. So the 49ers dot went from down here, bottom left. And again, what's going to matter more is how high up it goes on the y-axis. It went from here to here. They were the fourth best separation team last season. So what happened in between the 2023 season and the 2024 season? Well, I think that the loss of Christian McCaffrey over the first half plus of this season was very damaging to Kyle Shanahan's process. I think there was a lot of reliance on Christian McCaffrey's gravitational pull to get guys open. So I think, A, that happened. A lot of separation issues followed because of that. B, Brandon Ayuk held out throughout all of training camp, so the 49ers weren't able to get into the cohesiveness that they wanted. And even when he did return, he was never quite back up to form. He might have had one big game against Arizona, but we just saw a lot of disappearing acts from Brandon Ayuk, and obviously was not the same player that he was in 2023. And Ayuk is a guy that can separate, right? At his best, Brandon Ayuk is definitely somebody who can generate that space between him and the nearest defender. Beyond that, you started to have the snowball effect of injuries, whether Deebo Samuel was headed to the hospital with pneumonia, Ricky Pearsall wasn't able to get integrated until much later after he was shot in the chest. Juwan Jennings was out for some time. I mean, there was a stretch there, and it was centered on the Kansas City game where the 49ers were down 4 of their top 5 eligibles. That hurts the separation, and I think all of this strain hurt Kyle Shanahan's play calling process. There's also the potential brain drain, right? Or I don't think it's potential. I think it's a very real thing. I think that the 49ers coaching staff has lost offensive-minded talent year over year. We can talk about Mike McDaniel leaving several years ago to the Miami Dolphins. We can talk about Clint Kubiak, who was running a lot of the pass game last year, leaving to the New Orleans Saints. So Kyle Shanahan has had to replenish and promote from within, but at some point, you are going to feel the effect of some of the losses that the 49ers have experienced, and I think that definitely is part of this. They're not scheming as much open space. One of the big criticisms I have of this team is that they've thrown the fewest screen passes in the NFL. I believe that when you are struggling, especially when you go to a backup quarterback, you need to go back to the basics. Things need to be simple. You need to throw short, or you need to find a way to get guys open short. They were also missing Trent Williams, so it's not like they could hold up in protection for all too long in this past game. And the 49ers haven't done that. Conversely, the Kansas City Chiefs, who have Patrick Mahomes, right? Some people are calling the Michael Jordan of the NFL. They're throwing the most screen passes out of any team. So Andy Reid's dialing up all these screens, and the 49ers aren't dialing up any. It's really hard to convince me that, the 49ers can't run a screen because defenses are waiting for it. Because Kansas City, they're obviously playing against teams that are trying to scheme up against screens, and they're still successful with them. So the 49ers need to find a way to somehow rectify this. They need to get out of the bottom left. And it's definitely not all personnel based. A lot of this is going to be coaching based. And I think that the 49ers run game and the pass game tied together, I think that they really build a lot of their schematic separation off of success in the run. But when you have plays like this on tape, where your center, who's the focal point of that run game for the reasons I've illustrated, is not getting out on reach blocks and runs are getting blown up because of it, that's going to have a negative domino effect that extends to the passing game. See, I promised you guys that I would tie everything together back to the center position. Run and pass are connected. So if the 49ers can find a way to fix a couple of these things, but I think it's going to be incumbent on Jake Brendel executing the blocks that are so important to Kyle Shanahan's system and executing them with more consistency. But if the 49ers can figure some of this stuff out, or if Shanahan can completely adjust away from it and say, hey, I just can't rely on that, and he's got to run something else, and I don't know what that would be since this offense has always been so center dependent. But if they can adjust, then things can look a lot better more quickly because the puzzle pieces all fall into place. It's more of a domino effect kind of thing. But hopefully I was able to explain how things can fall apart in a negative domino effect fashion that does lead back to the middle of the offensive line and that center position. Mike, can you send me the ad read? I will get through that. Maybe I'll get through a couple questions, and then I'm going to go eat a burrito with Jack. It's going to be great. Shout out to Jack, who might be listening as he's driving up into San Francisco so we can go get some very good food. The rain has stopped. Beautiful weather now in the city. That's exciting. It's going to be that way for about 10 days, but not in Buffalo. It might be snowing in Buffalo. I rented a pickup in Buffalo. How to make sure I had the 4-wheel drive. So I've got a pickup. I'm going to pick it up at the airport, and maybe I'll be doing some donuts in the snow in the parking lot. I don't think that's illegal in the parking lot at Buffalo, right? I mean, people jump on tables there. I promise to get some table jumping footage when I'm in Buffalo. If I could find it, I will brave the elements to find some table jumping footage. I do get bonus points if the table is also on fire while somebody jumps on it from the top of the roof of a truck or a van. I mean, those people are crazy. As John Lynch said today, they're passionate in Buffalo. You lost me there for a second, but now I'm back. Accidentally X'd out of the screen in that moment. So it's going to be fun, and it's going to be cold. I think conditions are going to be worse than they were in Green Bay, which I don't necessarily think is a bad thing for the 49ers because they're the underdogs now. When you're the underdog, you want stuff to be a little crazy. Now, with the Bills, they've done such a good job developing Josh Allen. If there's a quarterback that's built for bad weather, it's Josh Allen. And the guy is built like a tank. I'm proud to say that he's from the Central Valley. I'm going to go through a little bit of that today. I went out to Josh Allen's high school, Fireball High School, where they've got the field named after him. And the gym at Fireball High School is actually named after Josh Allen's grandpa, which I think is really neat. So good stuff. Why don't we go through what we need to go through right now? This show is brought to you by BetterHelp. This month is all about gratitude. So we're going to be grateful for Mike. Mike helps these shows run. He just dug up the BetterHelp ad, which really helped me out. So along with Mike, there's another person that we don't get to thank enough, ourselves. It's sometimes hard to remind ourselves that we are trying our best to make sense of everything. And in this crazy world, that isn't easy. Here's a reminder to send some thanks to the people in your life, including yourself. If you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. Just fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist and switch therapists at any time for no additional charge. Let the gratitude flow with BetterHelp. Visit betterhelp.com/Lombardi Lounge today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/Lombardi Lounge. Go check them out. Hopefully you enjoyed the show. Subscribe to the channel, and we'll talk to you very soon.